It's a beautiful morning from this part of the world. And how are you doing today? Good morning, every single one of you. So let's quickly confirm that we are all on the same page. So if you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly, kindly type in hi in the comment section so that we can get this session started. I hope my audio quality is good this morning. So let's quickly do this. If you can see my screen and you can hear my voice clearly, kindly type in hi so that we can get the session started. All right, so let's see what's happening here in the comment section. All right, Innocent Babe, good morning to you. And how are you doing today? Glad to have you this early. All right, so we have Mel Goles. Good morning to you. Thank you for the confirmation. Dorothy, thank you. Hey, Carrie, good morning to you. Thank you. All right, thank you. That's great. Okay, so we are starting on a good note today. 437, thank you. Good morning. All right, so I would like to take this as a confirmation that we are good to go. Well, I'm fine, thank you, Innocent Babe. Trust you are. All right, so I'm so excited to welcome you to yet another promising session on the Extra and Speed Live Hub. My name is Sheriff Daramola, and in the next 1 hour, I shall be taking you on a trading journey where we shall be evaluating the financial markets using technical parameters to identify trading opportunities lining up for us today. Well, one of my excitement is that we have been profitable this week so far. In a matter of fact, I think all the pairs we have been monitoring since the beginning of the week as either it's our take profit or close to take profit at this point in time. So on the back of a profitable trade, we shall be diving into the market where we shall be reviewing the financial market. We are going to be reviewing all the pairs we have been monitoring since the beginning of this week. And if there are any trading opportunities that we could take advantage of, in case you missed out on some of these opportunities, I will be sharing them during the course of the session. And if there are any advices, I will definitely be sharing with you as time goes by. So I will be advising you to stay tuned in so that you don't miss out on any of these ideas and opportunities that we shall be deliberating on today. So with that being said, let's dive into the chart and let's see what is going on in the market right now. Well, before we go into the chart, let's quickly look at the economic calendar as we have, I think we have some macroeconomic events coming up today, which is going to be affecting one of the pairs that we've been monitoring since the beginning of the week. So the first one we have here is the AUDUSD, and for the Aussie we have the GDP product for Q3 was published during the early hours of today, and from the result we have here, it was in fact below expectation as the consensus was 0.7%, and what we had was 0.6%, giving us a deviation of about minus 0.33, which is not good for the Aussie. We shall be seeing how this is going to be affecting price action when we look at the charts. Then we also have something coming up today for the GDP as well, for the Japanese yen as well, which will be coming up later today, very much later in the day. This is going to be happening, and we have a consensus that expects that the figure will remain the same. So let's see how that is going to be like. Remember, we are monitoring the USDJPY, and so this is likely going to be having a major impact on price movement on that pair. So these are the pairs, these are the macroeconomic events we shall be taking into consideration while looking at the charts. So with that being said, let's dive into the charts and let's see what is going on in the market right now. Well, the first commodity we are going to be looking at this morning is going to be the US oil as usual. And if you look at the current structure we have right now, in the matter of fact, we are very, very profitable on this commodity. So as at yesterday, we had a situation where we jumped in another selling opportunity after the breakdown retest of the $77.20 level during the early hours of yesterday, and we saw a situation where price broke down the $76.80 level. So we were around this area during the live session yesterday when we were looking at other possibility just in case that price action might give us a second chance, especially for those who missed out on the opportunity right below the $77.20 area. And in matter of fact, we saw what happened here during the New York session yesterday. As soon as price came back into the $76.80 level, we started seeing selling pressure, hereby respecting that area one more time to send price crashing further to the downside. And remember, I told you yesterday that we shall be having our take profit target lining up with that trend line which we identified earlier. Let me quickly show you how that is on the 2 hours time frame. So we had this trend line figured out at the beginning of the week, which was holding selling pressure since in the last 3 weeks here. And after connecting the series of lower highs here, we had the situation here. And remember, we rode this bearish momentum to the downside trough in the last 3 weeks before we finally witnessed the breakout of that trend line, where structures insinuated that the trend line might no longer be strong enough to hold selling pressure. So we saw the breakout of that structure. And one thing I stated here yesterday was that we might be looking forward to a situation where, since we already had the breakout of that trend line, that price might likely come back to do a retest of that structure. So because of this technical expectation, we placed our take profit target around the $75 area, which was it comfortably, with the first position closed with 230 pips, the second one closed with 180 pips, giving us roughly close to 400 pips on the US oil. Now, going into, as we head into the New York session today, we also had another beautiful structure here during the early hours of today, which I shared on my public platform, where I made mention of we were able to identify a structure again between the $74.65, which was serving as a selling niche at one point in time. Then we had a support level of the channel at around the $74 area. Remember, the $74 area on our daily time frame was where price started 2 weeks ago, the bullish momentum. So we were looking forward to a signal either in the form of a breakout of that structure to incite a counter trend opportunity, or a breakdown of that structure to incite a bearish momentum. And the breakdown is exactly what happened here. We started seeing selling pressure on our lower time frame, and we were able to take advantage of another bearish momentum right below the $74 level. And for those who took advantage of this opportunity, very, very well done to you guys, as we presently will be running with about how many pips in profit right now? Over 110 pips in profit at this point in time. And if you are part of this journey so far, kindly move your stop loss accordingly, and most appropriate area to move our stop loss will be somewhere right above the $74 level, or within that $74 area. Let's move it to break even and see if price will continue to ride to the downside from that level. So now that we have the situation running at this point in time, what is going to be our plans for the New York session today? And for those who missed out on this opportunity, we shall also be looking at if the market is going to be presenting us with another chance to join that decline to the downside. So in order to have a better perspective into what is really going on here, I would like us to scale up to the daily time frame. Let's have an holistic view of what is really going on in the market right now. And let's see if the selling opportunity, the sell position we are holding right now, is going to continue to the downside. So structures will tell us if that is going to be happening, or are we going to be having a reversal setup that might likely incite another wave of bullish momentum. So in that regard, we shall be scaling up to the daily time frame. And here we are on the daily time frame. So hold on a second. Let me quickly do some reset on my chart so that we can have a better view of what is going on here. So like I stated here during the during the live session on Monday here, we can see vividly that price action has been caught within the channel between the $93.50 level, which has been holding selling pressure in the last couple of months here. Then we have the demand zone, the support level of the channel at around the $76, $78 level, an area which has been holding by pressure also in the last 2 to 3 months. Now, this emphasizes the indecision in this market as participants are actually looking forward to a signal that might likely send price either crashing to the downside or moving price to the upside. And I shared with you during the live session yesterday that the OPS Plus finally had their end of the year meeting. And in the meeting, the decision still remains the same. There was no change in policy as they will continue to reduce cut oil production by 2 million barrels per day from November, that was last month, till the end of 2023. And from a fundamental perspective, when we look at this, when you cut oil production, definitely there is an expectation that the demand in the market is going to be higher. And when demand is high, we're supposed to be expecting that price will soar to the upside. But there is another twist to this whole story, and that is the Russian oil cap, which the EU finally made a decision, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, that they will be placing a cap of $60 on the Russian oil. So this all scenario around the US oil is actually reflecting an indecision in price action on the chart right now. But in order to have a better perspective of what's really going on, we want to be placing our hopes on technical structures, because technical structures will definitely give us the psychology of what is really going on in the market. What's participants in the market are thinking will be reflected on the chart, and we shall be using that to decipher what our next line of action is going to be like. So now, if we look at the current structure here, we have a demand zone at around the $78, $76 level. And if you look at this demand zone here, you can see what has happened here in the last couple of days now. We saw engulfing bearish candle that appears to have broken down that demand zone. And what this simply tells us is that there is a possible selling continuation to the downside. That's a bearish signal from a technical standpoint. Whenever we have a breakdown of a structure like this, we expect that price might likely come back to do a retest of structure to incite another wave of bearish momentum to the downside. So this is one of the scenarios we shall be looking forward to as we head towards the end of the week. Then the second scenario is that this breakdown here might possibly turn out to be a false breakdown, taking out all the sellers in this market, hereby evolving into a reversal pattern that might likely send price skyrocketing to the upside. So these are one of the few things we are going to be looking at on the 1 hour time frame. So most importantly, we want to be seeing what is really going on around here on our lower time frame to decipher if we want to continue to hold on to our sell position. And if that is the case, then we should be thinking of adding more position at a possible transition of a structure that supports a trend continuation to the downside. And if a reversal pattern is identified on the lower time frame, then we want to be looking at taking advantage of that move to the upside. If it's only going to be a retest of structure, we will know. If it's going to be only a retest of structure, we might want to join it first. And if we start seeing selling pressure, then we might want to join the decline to the downside. And if price continues to go to the upside, we continue to look out for opportunities to join the trend continuation to the upside. So with that being said, let's quickly dive into the 1 hour time frame and let's see what is happening. So before I go there, last week we saw a test of the $74 level. So we want to see how price is going to be relating to the $74 level here, which we can see we're beginning to see we saw a little breakdown of that structure. So is it going to turn out to be a false breakdown, or are we going to be seeing a retest of that structure to send price going to the downside? So scaling back down to our 1 hour time frame, and for those who are already in this trade since yesterday, one thing I'll be saying here: move your stop loss accordingly, lock in your profit, because we might be in for a bullish momentum that might come in any time from now. So with that being said, the first thing I will do here, we identify the $74 level. So this is the $74 level which price rejected last week. So this is the structure here. So from the look of things now, we have this engulfing bearish candle which broke down that structure. And from a technical standpoint, this is more or less a bearish signal. So we shall be looking forward to price coming back to do a retest of that structure, followed by selling pressure on our lower time frame to join that decline to the downside or add more position to our existing trade if you are still in that trade. Now, in addition to that structure is this trend line, which I shared with you earlier. So let's go back to the 2 hours time frame. So remember, we identified a bearish trend line which has been holding selling pressure in the last 3 weeks. So we had this bearish trend line after connecting the series of lower highs, and this bearish trend line, I want to extend it further into the future, as we shall be using it as our yardstick for trading activities during the later part of this week. So I've extended it a little further. And if we look at that bearish trend line, you saw it was broken here to the upside in the during the later part of the month of November. And it appears we have a retest of that structure. And at the retest of that structure, we started seeing a consolidation phase there. So there is an indecision around that area where participants are looking forward to either price continuing to the upside or breaking down that structure to send price crashing further to the downside. So we shall be going back to our 1 hour time frame, and let's see how significant that trend line is when we correlate it with the current structure that we have here. So let me zoom in so that we can see things more clearly here. So this is where we are. This is our center of focus right now. So we already witnessed a breakdown of that $74 level, which also shares a confluence with that bearish trend line that we identified earlier. So there are 2 things we are going to be looking forward to here. We are beginning to see buy pressure. Look out for selling pressure right below the $74 level. Look out for price coming back to do a retest of either the trend line or the structure at the $74 level. But the most important thing we want to be looking out for is selling pressure below either of the structure to join that decline to the downside here. So this is one scenario we are going to be looking out for to sell the US oil. Then the other possible scenario that might happen here is that this engulfing candle, this breakdown of the $74 level could actually be a false breakdown, taking out all the sellers in this market, getting more liquidity for buyers to be able to push price above. So what I'll be looking forward to buy the US oil if I see an outright breakout of that trend line, that is price climbs up the trend line there, and if possible breaks out the $74.65, then a retest of structure happens. Remember, we don't want to get too excited when we cite such a breakout like that. We want to see further confirmation, and this is likely going to come in the form of a retest of structure or the retest of the trend line, where we start seeing buy pressure right on our lower time frame. Then we can actually think that this is going to be a counter trade opportunity that we would like to take advantage of. And with the take profit target sitting somewhere around the $79.50 level in the meantime, a level which also shares a confluence with the structure that was broken on Tuesday here. So we saw the structure broken here. I think on Monday we had the structure broken here. So we want to see how price action will relate to that structure in order to either buy or sell the US oil. So these are my views here on the US oil. So I hope that we'll be on standby so that we can take advantage of that opportunity when the structure finally evolves to a favorable market structure. So that is that on the US oil. If you have any questions, feel free to drop your inquiries in the comment section. All right, so let's quickly run through the chart. I'll be using the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the chart and see if there are any questions before we move on to the next pair. So 9007, good morning. 117, thank you. Melky Gulez, Sergio, and Jojo B. All right. Good morning, Francisco. Raphael, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Good morning. All right. So, in the absence of no questions, I want to assume that we are all on the same page. So, my advice is that we try to monitor or record the screen so that when you're about to make your individual decision, you can use this as a reference point to guide your trading activity during the New York session. So, let's move on to the next option. And the next option we are going to be looking at today is the US Tech. The US Tech is also a very, very profitable trade for us since the beginning of the week. Remember, we have been selling the US Tech right from day one of this week as we took advantage of that selling opportunity right below the $11,960 level as price broke down that flat channel we identify at the beginning of the week right within the $12,000 level and the $11,960 area to incite and give us a very good signal to join that decline to the downside. And a matter of fact, we were about how many pips in profit during the live session yesterday? We were over 150 pips in profits during the live session yesterday. And during the live session yesterday, we were around the $11,820 level. And one thing I did here yesterday was to give us a simple setup that we can use to guide our trading activities during the New York session yesterday. And this was the 11,820. As you can see how that level has been a major determinant of price action since the later part of last week trading session, though we've been witnessing buy pressure around this area. And one thing I stated here yesterday is that this buy pressure will only be confirmed if we see an outright breakout of the 11,820 followed by buying pressure right above that structure. Then we could actually be thinking of buying the US Tech. And the other scenario I simulated here yesterday was that I identified this temporary trend line, bullish trend line, which I said has been guiding bullish momentum in the last 24 hours thereabout at the time of that session. And one thing I stated here is if we cite a breakdown retest of structure on our lower time frame, then we want to be joining that decline to the downside. And this is exactly what happened here as price action broke down that structure on our 5 minutes time frame. Did the retest? In fact, we had multiple selling pressure right below the $11,820 area to give us that leverage to join that decline to the downside. And lo and behold, price moved significantly well, and within hours we were able to hit our take profit target. So remember, we had a take profit target zone between the $11,770 and the $11,600 level. But as soon as price hits the first take profit target here, which we placed at 11,700, remember the first trade we took this week, the TP target was around 11,700. And so the second one I stated here yesterday was that we should be extended the TP to the maximum point we are looking forward to, which is around 11,600. But one thing I did here is when I saw the significant breakdown of the $11,700 level, it was a sign that the sellers are still very strong at this point. So I extended a little further into the $11,500 level. Remember how important that level is on the daily time frame. Well, I will be showing you how important that level is on the daily time frame in a matter of moments, but let me quickly run through what is really happening here. And we saw price come back into the take profit target at 11,500 with about how many pips that was? Over 310 pips in profit, coupled with the 260, that's over 500 pips on the US Tech. So we are very, very profitable on this one. And for those who are part of this profitable journey, kudos to you guys, congratulations. And so as we head into the New York session today, what is going to be our plans? Well, for me on this one, during the when I opened the chart this morning, I was able to identify a structure at 11,580. And if you look at how that structure has been a major determinant of price action since last week, we saw buy pressure here, we saw the breakdown of that structure, price climbed up again. Then we saw another breakdown of the structure during the New York session yesterday. Then we started seeing selling pressure around this area during the early hours of today, giving us a sign that sellers appear to be coming in at this point in time. So it was a good area to sell the US Tech one more time. And we can see price has moved significantly well from that level with over 70 pips in profit right now. And for those who took advantage of this opportunity, kudos to you guys for being on standby to take advantage of this. And if you did so, I will be advising you to move your stop loss accordingly, lock your profit at break even at this point, and let's see how price action is going to play out during the New York session today. So we have a structure already at 11,500, which has been holding by pressure for the last 2 weeks. I think 3 weeks, 4 weeks here now on the US tech. As you can see how the 11,500 has been holding by pressure. We saw the same thing happen here mid-month of November. We saw the same thing the later part of the month of November, and during the last day of the month of November again we saw buy pressure from that same area. We saw another one happen here yesterday, so you can see how important that level is and how that area also has been holding by pressure at this particular point in time. However, we see certain pressure coming in again at this area, though we are still within that demand zone. So because of this, there's still a possibility that price might climb up from this level. So as a result of this expectation, I have decided to move my stop loss to break even here, which I would advise you to do so as well, as we might be seeing a situation where price might come back into either the trend line here or the $11,700 area to incite another wave of bearish momentum to the downside. So before I go, let's quickly run through the daily time frame. Let's see what is really happening here. How we're going to be having a breakdown of the structure, retest of structure to incite another wave of bearish momentum, or we're going to be having a bullish momentum continue from this upside to retest the $11,700 zone to send another wave of bearish momentum to the downside. So let's quickly have an holistic view of what is really going on here by scaling up into the daily time frame, where we shall be seeing things more clearly from an holistic point of view. Now, here we are on the daily time frame, and the first thing you would observe here on the daily time frame is that price action has been on a long-term bearish momentum here. In a matter of fact, since the beginning of the year, we have been witnessing that selling pressure, and as a result of this, we had the lower highs connected, and we had that as a result of that, we had this bearish trend line figured out here. However, in the month of June, price coming back into the $11,000 level, we saw that sellers who are not strong enough to break down that structure as buyers quickly took over the market, pushing price to the upside. The same thing happened here in the month of October. I think the first day of the month of October, we started seeing buying pressure from that area again. But one thing that happened afterward was that the $11,700 level was holding selling niche for participants in this market, hereby shifting the demand zone further to the downside to further emphasize the strength of the sellers at this point. So in the last couple of weeks, we have been using the $11,700 level as a yardstick for trading activities, as we can see how that level has been a selling niche for the most part of the month of September stroke the early days of the month of October. We saw selling pressure around that area before the breakout of the structure happened during the first week of the month of November. And since the breakout of that structure happened here, we were actually thinking that a bullish momentum could come in at this point. But what we noticed was that price has been caught within a consolidation phase right around that area, to emphasize the indecision in the market at that particular point in time. So because of this, we though we had some opportunities last week which we took advantage of, but right now we are at a very critical point in the market right now, and that is the 11,500 level, which served as a neckline, as a potential neckline, which we identified last week when we were expecting that this consolidation phase here would probably evolve into a reversal pattern where a breakdown of the neckline at 11,500 might likely incite a retracement phase of this impulse leg that we had here to incite another wave of bullish momentum. Well, this is what I mean here. So we had an impulse leg here, and that we might be having a retracement phase if price breaks down the 11,500 back into a TP target zone which we identified around the golden zone area, which is between the 50 and the 78.6% of the previous impulse leg here, where we said we shall be looking forward to buy an opportunity to join another wave of bullish momentum. So you can see we are at a very critical point in time right now, as price is just exactly around 11,500. So yesterday we saw a little rejection of that level, and in matter of fact, since in the last 3 to 4 weeks, we have been witnessing buy pressure from this level to emphasize the strength of the buyers at that particular point in time. So what we want to be doing during the live session today is to be patient. Let's wait out for how participants in this market will be relating to the current structure here to decipher if we are going to be going to the downside or we are going to be continuing to the upside one more time. So we have two options here that we shall be looking out for. One is when we scale down to our lower time frame, if we cite a breakdown of the 11,500 followed by a retest of structure or selling pressure identified on our lower time frame right below the 11,500, we might want to be joining that decline to the downside. And remember, we are already in a sell position right now. Move your stop loss accordingly. Like I said earlier, move it to break even just in case a buy momentum comes in from this area. So if a breakdown retest happens, we want to be adding more position to our existing trade. And if you are not yet in a position here, a breakdown retest would be a welcome idea to join that decline to the downside. Then what happens if price does not break down the 11,500? Well, this is another setup we want to put into consideration too, as well as we get ourselves prepared for the New York session. So if we start seeing buying pressure around this area on our lower time frame, let's say the 5, 10, 15 minutes time frame, we start seeing buying pressure around that area, then there is a tendency that price might likely respect that level again, just as it has been doing in the last 4 weeks here. So there's a tendency that price might respect that trend line. So these are the two scenarios we shall be looking at on the 1 hour time frame and getting ourselves prepared to take advantage of that move. So going back to the 1 hour time frame. Going back to the 1 hour time frame here, let's quickly look at that structure we just identified on the daily time frame. So I would like to zoom into that structure so that we can have a better understanding of what we are talking about here. So remember, we have the $11,500 level here. So for the sake of clarity, so we have the 11,500 is the 11,500, and as you can see here on the 1 hour time frame, price is right back at that structure. We saw sharp rejection here yesterday. Price is right back at that structure right now. So we need to see this candle close. Please ensure you've moved your stop loss accordingly. We want to see this candle close, and if we are lucky enough for price closes below that structure, we notice selling pressure right below this level at 11,500. We want to be joining that decline to the downside, and we shall be using the take profit target which we identified earlier as an area which we'll be looking forward to. So we have a minimum of 220 to a maximum of about 600 pips to catch here if price moves in that direction. So that's the first scenario we are going to be looking out for selling opportunities here. Then the second scenario I want to be looking out for is this, that if we have a situation where we start seeing buying pressure here on our lower time frame, that is, that level continues to reject any selling momentum here, a breakout retest on our lower time frame might likely incite another wave of bullish momentum here. But one thing I will state here is this is even if a buy opportunity comes in here, it could turn out to be a counter trade opportunity, and at the same time it could likely be a retracement of the previous impulse leg that we had here. So a retracement into probably the 11,700 or this bearish trend line that was broken yesterday. So remember, we had this bearish trend line. This line has been, price action has been respecting this trend line since the later part of the month of November, before we saw the breakdown of that structure. So there is a likelihood that price might come back to do a retest of that structure. And if you look closely into what we have here, the retest, the trend line here also lines up with the $11,700 level, a level which we identified on the daily time frame to be a major determinant of price action in the last couple of months. So we want to see price come back into that area if buy pressure appears right above the 11,500. So if price comes back into that area, we want to be patient when price comes within the zone to look out for what is going to be happening there. So is there going to be selling pressure coming out from that place? If it does, if selling pressure comes out from that place, then we want to be getting ready to join that decline to the downside. But if price breaks out of that structure and then we see a retest of structure followed by buying pressure right above that level, then we want to be thinking of joining a rally to the upside, and we should be having a maximum point at the 11,960 as a take profit target, as this is where price action started the week. But in as much as we join that bullish momentum to the upside, we should also be wary of the $11,820 level to see how price action relates to that structure. If price action comes within that level, please ensure you have moved your stop loss, lock in some profit, as anything could happen from that area. So these are my views here on the US text. I hope you will be on standby to take advantage of that move when it finally happens during the New York session today. So on this note, I would want to move on to the next pair. But before I do, let me quickly run through the charts and see if there are any questions regarding what I've just explained so far before I move on to the next pair. So I'll be taking the next 10 to 15 seconds to read through the charts and see if there are any questions. And if there are none, we just move on to the next commodity, which is going to be the gold. All right, so we have okay, 907, good morning. All right, I do not understand English, I'm sorry. Hello everyone. All right. Okay. Okay, 9985 Cha, you're welcome. First time here, glad to have you around. I hope you stay tuned in so that you don't miss out on any of the ideas we shall be sharing, and also shall be benefiting you during the New York session today. All right. Okay. First time 983. Good morning. Dino, good morning. Okay, Vasilija. All right, we shall be tricking gold in a moment, so stay tuned in. Scott Benji, good morning to you. Glad to have you around. Dorothy, yes, we'll be treating gold in a moment. All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next commodity. And the next commodity we are going to be looking at today is the XAUUSD, and that is the gold. And on the XAUUSD, we are in a clumsy situation right now. Remember, we have been selling the XAUUSD since the beginning of the week. Remember, we took advantage of this selling opportunity right below the 1,808 level around here. And our first position gave us about 1,300 pips. Then we took the second position here at below the 1,795, which I showed you on Tuesday. Okay, on Monday I said if price breaks down that structure, we want to be taking advantage of that move again. So we had that opportunity again taken, and that also gave us about 1,800 pips coupled with 1,300, almost over 3,000 pips there since the beginning of the week. Now, since in the last 24-48 hours now, we have been witnessing a consolidation phase on the XAUUSD, and that is the situation we have right now, just between the 1,775 and the 1,767. So you can see how the 1,775 has been holding certain pressure, though we saw a little breakout of that structure here on Tuesday, which we took advantage of, but what was taken out of the position at break even here. And since then, we have been witnessing selling pressure right below the 1,775 level. Then we have a support level at the 1,767. As you can see, as soon as price gets into that structure, we see buy pressure coming from that level to emphasize the strength of the buyers at that particular point in time. And when we have structures like this, it's very, very important that we remain very patient here to look out for signals to take advantage of either a bullish momentum or a bearish momentum at this point. So when we have structures like this, what is it that we want to be looking out for? Well, we either look out for a breakout of that structure to give us a signal that price wants to do a retracement of the impulse leg that started this week before another wave of bearish momentum will happen. So that is one scenario that we might be looking forward to during the later part of this week. Then the second scenario is if price breaks down the support level, that is take out all the buy position here, gain some liquidity to push price to the downside, then we could be seeing this as a bearish signal where a retest of structure followed by sudden pressure lower time frame is likely going to be sending price crashing further to the downside. So these are the two scenarios we are looking out for, and you will agree with me that this is a very simple setup. Only if we can have that patience, we could take advantage of that opportunity and be very profitable on this one. So now that we are going into the New York session today, what is it we are going to be looking out for? What tendency do you think is going to be happening here? Is the tendency for selling momentum stronger, or the tendency for buying momentum stronger than the tendency to sell? So before we go into the details of what our expectations are, I want us to scale up to the daily time frame, have an holistic view of what is really going on here, and let's see if the structures of the daily time frame will still support a selling opportunity here. Now, here we are on the daily time frame, and as you can see, the first thing you observe here is that price action has been on a long-term bearish momentum. In fact, since the beginning of the year, I think in the month of March, we have been seeing selling pressure, and we were able to connect the series of lower highs here to give us that resultant bearish trend line. And since price tested the $1,625 level in the month of September, we have been witnessing buy pressure from that level, which finally led to the breakout of the trend line, which also shares a confluence with the $1,680 level to push price to the upside. And if we zoom out and see what has been happening here since the beginning of the year, you can see that there is a major key level that one cannot ignore at this point, and that is the $1,800 level. Look at how that level has been a major determinant of price action since the beginning of the year. Look at what happened here December, January, February of this year. This level was holding by pressure as participants in this market deemed it fit to buy the XAUUSD. At that particular point in time, we saw the same thing happen here again in the month of May before we finally witnessed that breakdown of that structure in the month of July. And since the breakdown happened in the month of July, what did we see here? We saw that that level started serving as a retest of structure. It began a selling niche, and since then, price has been trading below the $1,800 level to further emphasize the strength of the sellers at this point. And because of this, because of the selling pressure around the $1,800 level, I was able to identify that area as a supply zone where we shall be looking to sell the XAUUSD going forward. Now, look at what has happened here in the last couple of weeks. Price has climbed back and is right back within that zone at the beginning of the week, as we saw here. And during our live session on Monday, we had two possible scenarios that could likely happen from this area. And the first one is that, considering the fact that we are on a long-term bearish momentum, and at the same time, we are within a very strong supply zone, which has been holding selling pressure in the last half of this year, we might be seeing reversal pattern within this area to send price crashing further to the downside, which might likely be a retracement move of this impulse leg in anticipation of another wave of bullish momentum. And the other possible scenario here is if we have a trend continuation pattern that breaks out of the 1,800, then a buy opportunity, a breakout retest of that structure should be welcoming us to buy the XAUUSD. But the former is what happened here. We saw a reversal pattern on our lower time frame at the beginning of the week here, and we took advantage of that move, which I told you earlier has given us over 3,000 pips in profit at this point. So with an engulfing candle on Monday that took price to the downside, that was a huge signal that we shall be having a selling momentum for this week. But what happened here yesterday, we saw this candle here. Buyers tried to come into this market yesterday, but was unable to push price to the upside. And what happened here was that the candle here evolved into a shooting star candle, which is a candle that reveals the strength of sellers at that particular point in time. So we still have a tendency that sellers are still in this market. So if we look at the structure here, we saw the sharp rejection of the $1,780 level, which should be a level we need to take into consideration on our lower time frame. So we saw a sharp rejection of that level. So we also have, we have between the 1,780 and the 1,765, I guess. Is it 1,765? Yeah, 1,765. So we have let me label this 1,765 and then the 1,780. So what this simply means is that for us to sell right now, I want to be seeing price break down the 1,765 level, retest of structure, selling pressure on my lower time frame. Then I want to be joining that decline to the downside. Remember, we have a long-term take profit target within this zone here that is between the 1,710 and the 1,650, or is it $1,660 level, an area which is also within that key level at the $1,680 area, where I said if buy pressure comes in from that level, we want to be joining a trend continuation to the upside from that area. So going back to the 1 hour time frame, let's see how participants in this market will be relating to the current structure between the 1,780 and the 1,765 in order to make a decision for today. So going back to the 1 hour time frame, hold on a second, let's quickly run through the 1 hour time frame and see what is really going on there. So we have the 1,780 and the $1,760 levels. So for the sake of clarity, let's quickly readjust our channel to suit the current structure. So we have the 1,780 here, which is around this level. Hold on a second. Okay. So I think this is what we are going to use for the 1,780 instead. So we have the 1,780 here. All right. So let's do some relabeling so that we don't get things mixed up. So we have the $1,780 level, and then we have the support channel at the 1,760, right? This 760 or 765, I think it should be 760. I think 1767 is okay here. So we have a channel already since the beginning, since on Monday, we have been caught within a channel right now between the 1,780 and the 1,767, further emphasizing the indecision in this market. So definitely we shall be looking forward to a major event that will be serving as a catalyst for price action. And if we look at the economic calendar, we don't have anything that will affect the dollar until Friday, and that is the publication on the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index. And well, when participants in the market anticipate major events like this, normally cash is pulled out of the market, and this is always reflected as a consolidation phase. And one thing we are going to be looking out for here is just to remain patient and look out for signals to take advantage of any momentum here. So like we said earlier, we shall be looking forward to a breakout retest of the 1,780 to join a counter trend opportunity. Remember, this is going to be a counter trend opportunity as we had an impulse leg here. So we look forward to price coming back to probably do a retest of the 1,795 level before we start seeing selling pressure that will send price go to the downside. That is if price breaks out the 1,780. However, if price breaks down the 1,767 level, then a retest of structure should be giving us an opportunity to join the decline. So now, with the look of things, since the beginning of the week, we have been experiencing selling pressure here, and the structure here is tending towards selling pressure. Are we going to wait for price action to break down the 1,767 before we join that decline? Well, let me see, how many pips is that from this point to this point? That's about 650 pips. So let's see if we can take advantage of that move before the breakdown of the 1,767 level happens. So if we connect the series of lower highs here, we have this bullish trend line, temporary bullish trend line, I will call that for now, which also shares a confluence with the 1,772 level. So what I'll be looking forward to is if price breaks down the structure, retest of structure followed by selling pressure right below the 1,772, I want to be selling below that structure. Then if price continue to the downside and breaks down the $1,767 level, a retest of structure followed by selling pressure should also give us an opportunity to add more position to our existing trade. So this is what we are going to be looking forward to on the XAUUSD. So let's see how price action plays out in the next 24 hours, and definitely we shall be coming here to give do a review and plan against tomorrow during the live session tomorrow. All right. So let's quickly move on to the next pair. I have less than 8 minutes left so that we can be able to take this through before we call it a day. So the next pair we are looking at is the USDJPY. And in fact, the USDJPY has been a very, very profitable trade for us. since the beginning of this week. Remember, we took advantage of this move right around this level at the 1,134.600 area. Then we saw the breakout of the channel at the 134.790, which led to a final breakout of the neckline area at the 135.500 level area. Remember, at the beginning of the week, we identified a reversal pattern here. Following this impulsive move to the downside, we saw a reversal pattern in the form of a double bottom structure. We saw the second touch here. Price was unable to break the previous low, and as a result of this, we identified the neckline area at the 135.500, and we said a breakout of that structure should be giving us a leverage to join the rally to the upside. And this is exactly what happened here. Later on Monday, we saw the breakout of that structure, and since then price has moved over how many pips in profit right now? Over 200 pips in profit at this point in time. And with our first position, we are running with about 300 pips in profit. That's a total of 500 pips in profit. And during our live session yesterday, we were around this point yesterday, right around this area, around the bullish trend line here. And one thing I stated here to make things easier for us during the New York session yesterday was that we are going to be looking to buy above the 136.500, and if price does not come that far, price climbing above this bullish trend line should be giving us a leverage to join that rally. And this is exactly what happened yesterday. So we didn't see this happen. We didn't see this breakdown retest back into this level before the bullish momentum happened. We didn't see that happen. Instead, price continued to the upside. And if you are taking advantage of this move right from this place yesterday, kudos to you for being on standby, as you will currently be running with about 93 pips in profit at this point in time. And if you are taking advantage of this one this morning, right above the 137.00 level, you will definitely be running with about 39 pips in profit. So the next thing I'll be advising us to do here is to lock in some profit, and let's see how price action will play out from this area. So we have made a lot of money on the USDJPY for this week. We don't want to be losing out on whatever we had made so far, so it's advisable that we move our stop loss accordingly to lock in some profit. And what I'll be advising us to do here is to use the $136.880 level, as we have a previous low here. So right below the structure is an appropriate area to move the stop loss of all the positions we have here on the USDJPY to negate any selling opportunity that might likely come in from this level. Now, for those who had missed out on this opportunity that we have been enjoying since the beginning of the week, well, let's see if the market is going to be giving us a second chance to add more position to our existing trade. Now, one thing I was able to identify here again is the 138 Japanese yen level. Here we have a structure around this area, a level which was broken during the course of last week's trading session to the downside. Remember, we had this level broken to the downside last week, and prior to the breakdown of that structure, that level was holding by pressure. So it was a demand zone at one point in time before we saw the breakdown of that structure during the midweek last week. And at this point in time, price is heading towards that structure. So for those who had missed out on these opportunities who have been taken advantage of since the beginning of the week, well, I will be advising us to remain patient here and see if we are going to be witnessing a breakout of the 138.00 level. And if this happens, we want to be very comfortable in our buy position. And if we are lucky enough, if we start seeing buy pressure right above that structure, then we want to be adding more position to our existing trade. So at the point in time, our take profit target still remain around the 139.500, simply because that level shares a confluence with the bearish trend line that has been holding selling pressure since the beginning of the month of November. Remember, we had this bearish trend line figured out. So since the beginning of the month of November, we were able to connect a series of lower highs here to give us that resultant bearish trend line. And as a result of this, we shall be looking to see how price is going to relate to that structure. And you can see the trend line there also shares a confluence with the 139.500 area. So if price gets into that structure and we start seeing selling pressure below that level, then we might be seeing this as another opportunity to join that decline to the downside. That means price is respecting that bearish trend line one more time. However, if price breaks out of the trend line, breaks out of the 139.500 level, and we start seeing buy pressure right above that structure, then we want to be adding more position to our existing trade on the USDJPY. So this is how we want to be buying the USDJPY for today. Then the other scenario that we should also take into consideration, like our culture here, we don't want to be fixed. We want to be as flexible as possible, as we might be planning for a direction and price action takes us the other way. So we want to get ourselves prepared to take advantage of that move when it finally happens. So the second scenario that I will be looking forward to at this point is, remember we had a breakdown of a structure here, 138.00 level during last week's trading session. And from a technical standpoint, whenever we have a breakdown of a structure, we expect that one point in time price might likely come back to do a retest of that structure, which might likely incite another wave of bearish momentum. So these are the things we want to also take into consideration while we head into the New York session. And if you look at what has been happening here in the last 6 hours, you will notice that we have been witnessing selling pressure in the last 6 hours here, right below the 138.00 level, to give us a clue that we might be having a bearish momentum at that particular point in time. So what I'll be looking out for during the New York session today, if sellers are going to be taking over this market, I want to be seeing a situation where this bullish trend line is broken to the downside, and if possible, the 137.00 level is broken. Then if that happens, remember, we are not getting too excited at the sight of such a signal. We want to be patient enough and wait for price action to give us further confirmation, which is likely going to come in the form of either a retest of the 137.00 level or probably the retest of this bullish trend line. But the most important thing we want to be looking out for is selling pressure right below both the structure to join that decline to the downside. So if that happens, we want to be looking forward to take advantage of that selling opportunity. And remember, we have a channel here running. So what we are going to be doing, if the selling opportunity comes in here, we sell. And as soon as price gets into the 136.100 level, an area which also shares a confluence with this support level of this ascending channel, we want to move our stop loss accordingly, probably right above the 136.500 level, lock in some profit, and let's see how price action will relate to the structure. So if we start seeing buying pressure around this area, then we might be getting ready to join another wave of bullish momentum to the upside. But if that was not the case, and instead price breaks down the support level of that channel, then selling pressure right below that structure should be inciting another wave to the downside, hereby giving us an opportunity to add more position to this trade. So this is what we are going to be looking forward to on the USDJPY. If you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to drop in your inquiries in the comment section, and let's see how I can be of help in that regard. So like I said earlier, try to be patient. Look out for all these opportunities here so that we can take advantage of that move when it finally happens. So let me quickly run through the last pair we are going to be treating for today, and that is the AUDUSD. And on the AUDUSD, we have been very profitable since the beginning of the week here, as we were able to take advantage of the selling opportunity right below the 0.67800 area here. Remember, during the first day of the week, we had this channel figured out. First of all, that is the 0.68500 and the 0.67800. We saw our price has been consolidating below this resistance point here, and we had a support channel around this area. So this was a signal that we might be having selling opportunity here. So I told us to position ourselves very well in such a way that we can take advantage of this breakdown of the 0.67800 at the beginning of the week. And this is exactly what happened, as if you are taking advantage of this trade since the beginning of the week, you will currently be running with over 100 pips in profit. Now, during the live session yesterday, we had the situation running where price was around this area. And one thing we stated here yesterday, we had two situations we were looking out for yesterday. The first one is that we could have a situation where the structure we had here will evolve into a reversal pattern that might likely break out of the 0.67400, which is supposed to be serving as a neckline of the reversal pattern to incite a correction back into the structure before this bearish momentum happened. So that was one scenario we were looking forward to yesterday. And the second scenario I stated here yesterday is if we start seeing selling pressure right below the 0.67400, we want to be joining that decline to the downside. And this is exactly what happened here yesterday. We saw selling pressure right below that structure, and it gave us an opportunity to join that decline to the downside here. And if you are taking advantage of that move as well, kudos to you guys for taking advantage of that move, as you will currently be running with an additional 50 pips in profit in addition to whatever we have been running with since the beginning of the week. Now, during the UK session this morning, we can see that price has been caught within a channel between the 0.67400, that is the resistance point here, and the support level at the 0.66900 area. And whenever we have a channel like this, it's very, very important that we remain patient to wait out for signals in the form of either a breakdown or a breakout of that structure to give us a clue of where price action might be heading during the day. Now, what we had here was quite interesting. I think I shared this on my platform where I said a breakdown of the 0.6990 level should be giving us a signal that sellers have come to stay here. So we have been witnessing selling pressure right below that structure, and below this level is a good area for us to sell the USD, AUDUSD. Add some position, add more position to your existing trade. It could be half of your position size, and let's see how this is going to, how far this is going to take us to. So it's a risk worth taking at this particular point in time. Breakdown, retest of structure, then we could join that decline to the downside. So this is another scenario, another opportunity we want to be taking advantage of during the New York session today. And for those who are already in this trade since the beginning of the week, I will be advising us to move our stop loss to somewhere right above the $0.67140 level, and let's lock in our profit there. We don't want to lose out on any of this profits we have made so far for this week. So let's see how this is going to run out. TP target still remains between the 0.65600 level and the 0.6400 level. So we have a huge TP target here. So if at any point in time around the 0.66200 I started seeing that the sellers are very, very strong in this market, I might want to be extending my TP further to guide my position judiciously well. Now look at from the 4 hours time frame. Remember, we have a trend line here. Remember, since the beginning of the month of November, we have been on a bullish trend here. Since the beginning of the month of November. So we had this bullish trend line figured out here. So there is a likelihood that price might come back into this area. It could touch the bullish trend line or above this bullish trend line where we said we are going to be looking forward to buy pressure. That might likely send price going to the upside. And if we have a breakdown of that structure, then we might be thinking of adding more position to our existing trade. So these are my views here on the AUDUSD. I hope I was able to simulate all the possible scenarios that we should be getting ready to take advantage of when they finally evolve during the New York session. Let me quickly run through the chart before I quickly do a quick recap of what our expectations is going to be like for today. So we have Isla in the house. Good morning, Isla. Scott Benchy, good morning. Thank you for being around. Steamroller, good morning to you. Did I miss? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't. I was unable to trade GBP/USD for this week on Monday, and because of time, I will not be able to take that. Probably next week we are going to be talking about the GBP/USD, but you can check that out on my public platform. It's there. Then we have 876, good morning to you. Glad to have you around. We also have Steamroller. Have you time to run quick through LTC Euro? No stress, otherwise I'm sorry, I will not be able to treat that. Steamroller. Mafiswana, I'm new here and like to learn because I don't know nothing about anything. All right. I will advise you to stay tuned in. Try to be part of the session on a daily basis. It runs 11 a.m. UTC, 10 a.m. West African time. Sorry, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time. So we run this on a daily basis in anticipation of the New York session. So try to be with us, and with time you get to understand how things work here so that you can be able to make your own individual decisions on your portfolio. Okay, Mafiswana. Okay, I think I read that already. All right. So I think let me quickly do a quick recap of all we talked about today before I call it a day. So The first commodity we looked at today is the US oil, and on the US oil, what do we have here? What is our expectation on the US oil? So let's go back to the 1 hour time frame. So we had a situation running here this morning. I told you we took advantage of the breakdown of the $74 level here. And as you can see here, we had the breakdown of that channel giving us a bearish signal. And I told you to move your stop loss to break even here. And one thing I stated here is that we want to be joining that decline if the market gives us another opportunity to sell the US oil in the form of a retest of the 74 or the bearish trend line here, setting pressure on our lower time frame. Then we could actually join that decline to the downside. And where will our take profit target be? Well, I think I did not talk about that, but one thing we want to do is use this impulse leg, extend it to the future using our Fibonacci retracement tool, and then we should be aiming between the 1414 and the 16.18 area, which will be giving us a minimum of, let's see, 180 to a maximum of 260 pips to catch here. So this is what I'm looking forward to sell the US oil. Then the other scenario I stated here is if price continues to the upside in such a way that it climbs above this bullish trend line, if possible breaks out of the $74.65 level, then if we start seeing selling buy pressure around this area, we want to be joining the rally to the upside with a TP target somewhere around the $79.50 area. And the reason why we're having TP target around that area is simply because of how the structure has been for us. During the course of last week's trading session, we saw how this level was holding by pressure at one particular point in time before the breakdown of this level happened. So from a technical standpoint, we might be looking forward to price coming back to do a retest of that structure. That is, if price breaks above the $74.65, retest of that structure by pressure above that level, then we want to be taking advantage of that buy opportunity into that area, and we should ensure that we move our stop loss accordingly, as this is a counter trend opportunity. But if that's not the case and price continue to trade below the $74 level, we want to be comfortable in our sell position. So that is that on the US oil. Then we went on to the option, the US tech here. And since the beginning of the week, we have been very profitable here. The first position closed with about 260. The second position closed with over 300. So we have over 500 pips running in profit on the US tech. And congratulations to you if you have been part of this profitable journey. And going into the New York session today, we were able to identify a simple setup here around the $11,500 level. So for those who missed out on this opportunity we took advantage of this morning, I'll be advising you to remain patient and wait for price to break down the $11,500 level to give us a signal that sellers are still very strong in this market. Then we could actually join that decline to the downside. However, if price takes us out of this position at break even, breaking out of the $11,580 level, then this might turn out to be a reversal pattern. As you can see, remember the 11,500 level has been a strong buying niche for the last 3 weeks here. So we saw as soon as price comes within the structure, we have been witnessing buy pressure from that same level. So the same thing happened here during the New York session when price hits our TP target, and we have been witnessing buy pressure from this area again. So I'm not going to be buying outrightly from here. I still need further confirmations to happen. So if this turns out to be a reversal pattern in the form of a double bottom structure, that is, price was unable to break the previous low here, then a breakout of the 11,580 should be signaling a counter trend opportunity that one might want to take advantage of, with a TP target between the 11,820 and 11,900 in anticipation of another wave of bearish momentum. Now, another thing I want to state here is this, that we had this trend line figured out here. Today, we can see this trend line. Price has been respecting this trend line at one point in time before we witnessed the breakdown of the structure yesterday. Now, there is a likelihood that price might come back to do a retest of that trend line. So if at any point in time price breaks above the 11,850 in such a way that price continues to the upside and you took advantage of the counter trend opportunity, as soon as price gets into the structure, kindly move your stop loss accordingly, lock in some profit, as there is the possibility that price might respect that trend line one more time to send price crashing to the downside. So these are the scenarios we are looking forward to on the US tech. So I hope we'll be on standby to take advantage of those moves when they finally happen. Then the next one we talked about is the XAUUSD, where we have been profitable since the beginning of the week. Remember, we sold right below the $11,800 level, and we have over 3,000 pips in the kitty since the beginning of the week. And since price tested the 1,767 level, we have been witnessing a consolidation phase here as price continued to oscillate between the $1,780 level and the $1,076 area to emphasize the indecision in this market. And whenever we have a structure like this, we want to remain patient to wait out for signals to happen in order to join a bullish or bearish momentum at this point. So what are we going to be looking out for here? I said we shall be looking out for a breakout of the 1,780 to join a counter trend opportunity, which might give us TP target around 1,795, 1,800, 1,808. What we want to be looking out for at these areas is selling opportunities to join another wave of bearish momentum to the downside. Then the other scenario is if price breaks down the 1,767 level, that gives us a signal to join a decline to the downside, retest of structure, we could sell from that level. However, in order not to wait for price action to break down the structure before we join, I can see that we have about 600 pips between the 1,772 and this area before that breakdown happens. What if we try to catch that move also very early? So I have decided to identify a structure here after connecting the series of higher lows here to give us this temporary bullish trend line, which I'm going to be calling just for the sake of this session. So let's see if price will break down that structure. If price breaks down that structure here, and you can see the bullish trend line here also shares a confluence with the 1,772 level. So if a breakdown of that structure happens, then I want to be seeing this as a bearish signal and an opportunity to sell if we start seeing selling pressure below that level. If the breakdown 1,767 happens, retest of structure, we want to be adding more position to our existing trade. So that's how we want to be trading the XAUUSD. Then we went on to talk about the USDJPY, which has been very profitable for us since the beginning of the week, as we have over 500 pips, close to 600 pips in profit here on the USDJPY. And I've told you guys to lock in your profits somewhere below the 136.800 level. Right below that area is most appropriate to lock in some profits at this point. And for those who had missed out on this buying opportunity we took advantage of since the beginning of the week, I have advised us to remain patient here and wait out for price action to give us another breakout of the 138.00 level to give us a bullish signal, retest of structure, buy pressure above that level, respecting that bullish trend line one more time. Then we could join that rally to the upside, and our take profit target remains around the 139.500 level. In the meantime, a level which also shares a confluence with the bearish trend line that we identified earlier. So we have a bearish trend line here which we identified earlier. Hold on a second, let me show you. So this trend line has been holding selling pressure since the beginning of the month of November. So we want to see how price action is going to relate to that structure if it happens to get to that level at all. So if price get there and we start seeing selling pressure below that level, we want to be joining a sell. And if price breaks out of that structure, we want to be thinking of buying the USDJPY. Now, the other scenario I stated here is this. In as much as we are still looking for buying opportunity here, we cannot ignore the fact that sellers could actually come in at this particular point in time. If we look at what happened here last week, we saw price break down the 138.00 level here last week, a level which has been holding buying pressure prior to that moment. So breakdown of that structure, there is a tendency that price might likely come back to do a retest of that structure to incite another wave of bearish momentum. So if that is going to be happening, we also want to get ready to join that decline. So like I said earlier, move your stop loss accordingly, lock in some profit just in case we have reversal patterns here. We want to get prepared to join that decline. And if we are going to be joining that decline from that level, and if you look at what has been happening here in the last 6 hours, we have been witnessing selling pressure around that area. So there is a tendency that price might likely break down that bullish trend line, retest to structure. Then we continue to see a breakdown of 137 level to send price crashing to the downside. Now, if we are going to be selling and we start seeing selling opportunities there, breakdown of that structure, I have told you that we should be wary as soon as price gets into the 136 points. 136.450 level, which is the support level of this ascending channel. So if price at any point in time comes within that area, we want to be moving our stop loss accordingly to protect our sell position, just in case if we start seeing buy pressure around this area that might likely incite another wave of bullish momentum. And if that is not the case, and instead price breaks down that structure, then the retest of that structure should welcome additional position to our existing trade. So this is what we are looking forward to on the USDJPY. Then we went on to talk about the GBP USD. And on the GBP USD, what do we have here? So we have the situation running since the beginning of the week. The first position we had at the beginning of the week gave us about 170 pips. The second position gave us over 100 pips here. And we took another position. Oh, sorry, we didn't talk about GPUSD. Sorry. So the pair we talked about next was the AUDUSD, and on the AUDUSD we have been profitable since the beginning of the week, as we have we enjoyed the breakdown of the 0.67800, that channel, at the beginning of the week, and currently we are running with over how many pips in profit in our first position? Over 100 pips in profit. And the second position is running with about how many pips now? 50 pips in profit. And then we have this third position also running at this particular point in time. And for those who have been part of this journey since the beginning of the week, I have told you to move your stop loss somewhere above the 1.67130, 140 level. Lock in some profit there, and let's see how price action plays out. So as long as price remain below the 0.67900 level, we start seeing selling pressure below that area on our lower time frame. We want to remain comfortable in our sell position, and our take profit target still remains within the 0.65600 level and the 0.6400 area. And let me quickly show you what we had on the 4 hours time frame here, the current structure we have here. So on the 4 hours time frame, we have a bullish trend line, a line that has been holding by pressure since the beginning, since the mid-month of October. And we have our TP target around here. So I'm looking forward to price coming into either the 0.65600 level or the 0.6400 level, an area where there is a tendency that price might evolve into another wave of bullish momentum. And if that does not happen, breakdown of that trend line should be inciting a further additional position to our sell trade on the AUD/USD. So this is what we are going to be looking out for this week. We were able to take the USOil, the US Tech, the XAUUSD, the USDJPY, and the AUD/USD. So I hope we were able to either save screenshots so that you can use it as a reference point whenever you're about to make your personal decision on all of the pairs we talked about today. So my advice is, let's get ourselves prepared so that we can take advantage of those opportunities when they finally happen. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being around. I really appreciate every single one of you. I wish you best of luck during the New York session today, and I'm also look forward to seeing you same time tomorrow, 10 a.m. UTC, 11 a.m. West African time, and let's come here again to review our positions and also get ourselves prepared for the New York session tomorrow. So on this note, I wish you best of luck today, and do have a wonderful and beautiful evening. Bye-bye.